Hello there. Today I'm taking a look at a wine from Moulis-en-Médoc, one of the communes of the Haut-Médoc, one of the less well-known communes perhaps. And this is Chateau Branas Grand Poujeaux, and this is their 2020 vintage. The estate is so named because a large portion of its vineyards lie on the Grand Poujeaux plateau in the middle of Moulis-en-Médoc, and this is a location shared with a number of other chateaux. In fact, there are 6 other chateaux that have the name Poujeaux in their title, and this is an area of deep gravel soils that's particularly well suited to the Cabernet Sauvignon, which likes that very friable, free-draining soil and benefits from it. Some of their vineyards are on soils which have much more of a clay and gravel mixture, but it's fair to say the best portion of their vineyards lie there. So it's next to Dutruch Poujeaux and sits between two of Moulis' most famous and most highly rated estates, Poujeaux and Chasse-Spleen. We're in the east of the appellation of Moulis-en-Médoc, close to the border with the commune of Arcins, and Arcins is one of the communes that comprise Margaux as an appellation. So we're slightly further inland from Margaux, but still with these excellent gravel soils. The estate comprises about 17 hectares, of which 12 hectares are vines, and these are in a number of plots. They're not all in a single block. The estate was bought in 2002 by Justin Enclin. He bought it from the Porquerie family who'd owned the estate since 1963, and at the time that he purchased it, the estate was in a very poor condition, and he set about to rectify that. One of his first moves actually was to get rid of Michel Rolland as a wine consultant, who was replaced with Stéphane de Renancourt. So yeah, both really renowned wine consultants for the area. But then in 2002, actually, he dispensed with Stéphane de Renancourt's services and took on Hubert de Bouard of Château Angelus as a wine consultant. And during this period, the quality of the wines and their reputation has continued to grow. Also as a partner, there's a Flemish-Dutch winemaker, Ariane Pen, and together Enclin and Pen rebuilt the cellars, replanted much of the vineyard, and the vineyards are in the process of being converted to being organic. They're as yet uncertified, but they're farmed that way at the moment. And the cellars are now state-of-the-art cellars using gravity feed to move must, juice and wine around. In 2020, ownership of the estate changed quite substantially when somebody called Hendrik Gommer bought a majority stake in the business. At the same time, they also invested in a neighbouring property, Chateau Branas Grand Poujeaux, which is another estate owning vineyards, not surprisingly, in Grand Poujeaux. 2020, a very impressive vintage. The harvest here started early. It started on the 15th of September, probably about a week earlier than normal. And the crop was small, but at the same time was of very high quality. There was uniform ripeness across the crop, and it all came in very healthy and perfect condition. The fruit was hand-picked, and prior to fermentation starting, it was cooled. It was allowed to do a cold soak pre-fermentation. A portion of the berries were left as whole bunches, just to reduce oxidation and as a means of giving softer tannins to the wine. Fermentation took place in a mixture of large conical oak vats and stainless steel tanks. Extraction was managed by alternating pump-overs, pushdowns and rack and returns, and a certain amount of post-fermentation maceration was also allowed, with the aim of giving greater weight and richness to the wine. The wine was run into French oak barriques, 225 litre barrels, 60% of which were new. Malolactic conversion took place in these barrels, and that helps to give a sort of a softness, to give chocolatey and coffee notes to the wine. And then the wine aged for somewhere between 14 and 16 months prior to being bottled and released. The blend on this is predominantly Merlot, 60%, 35% Cabernet Sauvignon, and then there's 5% of Petit Verdot to make that up. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? See what we think. Looking at the colour, there is a really good depth and intensity there. That's deep and dark. In terms of the actual wine's colour itself, it's still youthful, and there is a slight purple hint to the otherwise sort of black-red colour. Looking at it, it seems to be forming reasonable tears on the glass, and that's unsurprising given that the wine's alcohol is at 14.5%. have a look at the aromas, shall we? See what we make of those. The aromas are very classical. There's quite indistinct black fruit, which is supported by notes of graphite and cedar, almost like sort of pencil shavings. There's a very definite cedriness there. And the black fruit, I suppose, more sort of brambles, maybe black plum. So let's taste and see what we make of it. The palate has a lovely concentration, a good structure, and lovely fresh acidity, and all those elements are nicely in balance. The freshness is allowing the fruit on the attack of the wine to be quite juicy. That's working quite nicely to balance some really quite fine cedary tannins, really very, very fine, almost sort of dusty style of tannins that have a bit of grip on the start of the wine. There's such good concentrated fruit. There's notes of maybe starting with a sort of a boysenberry note, boysenberry, blackberry, black plum, heading to a real sort of licorice core, an intense licorice with a touch of bitterness. The alcohol at 14.5% is clearly adding weight and roundness to the mid palate, but isn't standing out particularly because the richness of the fruit is sitting over it quite nicely. It's giving a lovely smoothness to the mid palate, where smooth, fine tannins take you on into a slightly cedary, slightly graphite smooth note on the finish, where the fruit you'll find is a sort of a juicy black plum and perhaps some hints of sort of slightly juicier fruit like boysenberry, black cherry, that sort of note there. The wine clearly has lovely ripe fruit and it's quite rich. I mean, that 14.5% alcohol makes it fairly powerful. I mean, it's really only a medium to medium full-bodied wine. It's not huge, but it's got a really lovely concentrated core of fruit whose purity and intensity is giving it some really nice length. I suspect that'll open up really nicely. I mean, I think 2020 is a vintage to buy and put away for several years. So, I mean, putting this in the cellar for 5, 6, 7, 8, probably 10 years would be a good option. But actually, it's also relatively approachable now. The tannins have finesse and suppleness, and the fruit's richness is actually quite nicely counterbalanced by the little bit of grip that they give. And the flavours are lasting pretty well. As I say, I expect it will improve with age, but this is actually drinking really quite nicely. Now it's showing itself to be a classy and very well made wine. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this of interest. If you've enjoyed the video, do please tell your friends, do press the like button. Do also feel free to leave some comments in the comment box below. It would be fantastic to know what you think about these videos. Equally, do consider signing up and following us on YouTube, and then that way hopefully you'll join us for another tasting in the very near future. Anyway, goodbye for now, hopefully see you soon.